She said kinda love affair.
Is love in the air, or is your relationship on the verge of destruction? Let's talk about it. Sit back,
Relax.
and enjoy your favorite cocktail as we discuss relationships, dating,
Sex.
and love. Love on the rocks, that is.
Love on the rocks. Love on the rocks. Love on the rocks. Love on the rocks.
Oh, yeah, everyone, and welcome to Love on the Rocks. Hey, it's Roger the Wild Child with Megan.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm tired.
Why?
I've been at the ball field. Of course.
Of course you've been at the ball field.
Of course I've been at the ball field. I'm so give out. We're in tournament season, so it's every day long. I'm so tired.
Are you?
Yeah.
Well, you know, it's
How was your
almost
weekend?
over, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's almost over.
Yeah. Well, we are joined today by our relationship influencers. We've got Lydia in the house and Jeremy.
Hi guys.
Hello, how you doing?
Good. How are y'all?
Howdy.
Great to have you guys here with us tonight.
Thank you. I'm super happy to be here.
Crystal is running a little bit late, so she should hopefully be here soon, and so forth. And Rachel, I believe, has tonight off. So, anyways, tonight we got an interesting topic. Beyond the breakup, it's saving the friendship. So we're going to talk about that here momentarily. But by the way, I voted today.
Did you? I voted Friday.
In Texas, today was our very first
Early election or early voting.
yes, early voting. Yes.
Yeah.
Sorry, we're running a few minutes behind. I've had a lot of sound issues on my end, so I am sorry that we are 10 minutes late. My apologies. Usually I'm good about this technical stuff, but yeah, whatever. So
We got it fixed.
We do. Hi, Lydia.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi, Lydia.
Howdy.
What's going on in Lydia land?
A lot of film stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So last month I was assistant director on a film called Camera X. So that is now in post-production. And then
Nice.
I was asked, well, I was already cast in a film called Hell's Gate, and I was asked to be second assistant director on that film. So it is a lot of work.
Mhm.
Camera X was more of a small film. I think we had a total of 11 cast members. And Hell's Gate has 46.
Wow.
And it's
Oh,
going to be an ultra low budget SAG film. So there's just like a ton of paperwork and red tape that needs to be done.
SAG is Screen
No.
Actors Guild, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
So,
Yeah, that'd be fun.
yay. Hopefully.
Yeah. Jeremy, what's new with you? We haven't seen you in a few weeks.
Yeah, some really cool stuff. I did a live event on my Mindful Mutiny podcast where
You might want to check, speaking podcast, you want to check the audio on your microphone. Go to our screen settings and switch the microphone because I don't think it's the microphone connected.
Are you talking to me?
Yes, I am, Jeremy. So if
You
you go
don't
to
think
the
it's-
settings, if you go to settings on the bottom, make sure it's the right microphone that's connected. Do.
Okay, is this better? Is this any better? A camera resolution, that's camera. Audio.
Audio, right. You got to go to audio settings. So while you're messing around with that, so I am going to be going back to Vegas starting the end of October for Halloween weekend. I used to be a VIP nightlife host in Vegas. And so I deal with all the nightclubs, strip clubs, limos, party buses, bottle service, free entry, all that fun stuff. So I will be back doing that. I don't know how long I'll be down there for. I'll be down there for the weekend, obviously, for Halloween weekend. And then I probably through to the beginning of the year. So, yeah. So I'll be going down there, flying back and forth from Houston to Vegas. So that's going to be fun. I'm looking forward to that. So I should have that decision made hopefully by midweek. So
Is
Jeremy,
my audio any better now?
your audio's fine. We can hear you.
Okay, well, I'll speak up here. So, I've had a couple of live events. I've got a wonderful new live event coming up on my Mindful Mutiny podcast on December 3rd, where I'm going to be interviewing a gentleman by the name of Andres, who's the head shaman of the Pachamama Sacred Paths Church. It's a spirit medicine church for mind-expanding medicine and that kind of thing. They do retreats all through the Western United States. Really wonderful conversation about spirituality and metaphysics and the mind and healing and everything like that. But the real thing that's been keeping me up at night is that owning a classic car is a chore all the time. Because when you fix the door handle and you shut the door, then the speedometer breaks. And when you fix the speedometer, then the radio antenna falls off. And then when you fix that, then the bumper falls off. But
Oh
you
my
look
God.
so cool coming down the street. You know, it's just kind of part of the whole thing.
Yeah. Well, it's a fun little hobby, right?
It's fun. It's actually this car right here up on the wall. I own that car.
Oh, sweet.
So, yeah.
That's pretty.
Thank you.
I love old cars.
Yeah, they're super fun. Everybody waves at you. And it's just you come back in and you smell like gasoline and exhaust, and your wife tells you immediately need to go take a shower, and then you explain that this is what men are supposed to smell like.
Right.
Gas,
Exactly.
exhaust, oil, that
This
sort of
is
thing.
true.
Yeah.
So
it's more
what
like
is a woman supposed to smell like then? You opened it.
Pandora's
Okay.
box.
More on that one, Jeremy.
Gosh, just
Perfume.
lilac and wonderful things, and not the first thing that popped into my head that would have gotten us kicked off the air.
Oh no,
I'm
we're not
pretty sure I've said some
cancelable.
bad stuff.
Yeah, this show's uncancelable. I'm sorry.
I could tell my jelly and jam joke again.
I guess you could.
I'm not going to.
Okay. All right, guys. Topic today: beyond the breakup, saving the friendship. I know we've touched base, kind of about this topic about, if you guys break up, can you be friends with your exes and stuff like that? So we've talked about this in previous episodes, but this is more designed like, I guess if you're friends with somebody and then you guys decide, hey, let's test the waters and make a relationship out of this, and it doesn't work out, can you guys go back to being friends again? Jeremy?
Gosh, I've been thinking about this subject today, and number one, it just feels to me like after a breakup, there has to be a recalibration, a period of time where there's a resetting of life, and that, maybe it's a good idea to just kind of go separate ways for a period of time.
Mm-hmm.
To get yourself kind of recalibrated into where it is that you want to go and who you want to be. But most certainly every single breakup is a little bit different. And, ones that I've been involved in, we didn't talk for years, but eventually you become reacquainted in a lot of cases. But it just feels to me like a clean break with some time to reset, to deal with feelings and grief is probably the best way to go about it.
I know that you start out as a friend, and then you guys okay, because you want to build the foundation of a friendship for one. You don't want to jump into a relationship and then try to find the friendship there. But once you cross that line, okay, and you guys are now friends, and now you're more of a relationship, emotions come into play, and then things don't work out. And it's like, can you get back to that point? Megan?
Yes.
You
Can you
can?
hear me?
Yeah.
Now you can hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I was muted.
Oh. Can you get back to that point, Megan?
I'd like to think so.
Okay.
Do
Why do you
wanna
think you
expand
wouldn't be
on
able
that?
to? Yes.
I don't know. I just think it once you get past a certain point, that's not an option.
Like the line of no return, for the point
Right.
of no return.
Right.
But
Right.
but can there be a return, Lydia?
I think so. So I was scouring Reddit
Of
today.
course you were.
Hey,
You know, I've
there is a
still never
lot
been
of
on that
people
website.
that deal with a lot of these issues,
Right.
and they give some rather, interesting feedback. So,
What'd you find?
a lot of it consisted of depending on what the breakup was. Now, a
Right.
lot of people commented and they said how they went back to being friends because they had just like an
Amicable.
there we go. That
Yes.
one. Mutual breakup, no issues, so they realized they just weren't meant to take that extra step. So
Mhm.
they were able to go back to being friends. One person even said like him and his ex were like texting or something, and he was like, "Oh, I'm gonna go grocery shopping," and she's like, "Oh, like, can I go with you?" And at first he was like, "Oh, maybe not," but he decided yes. And when she got in the car and they like put on the playlist, the first song that played was Taylor Swift, We're Never Getting Back Together. He goes, and that immediately just broke the ice. And he's like, we've been good ever since. So
There you
I
go.
think if you have a strong friendship to begin with, then you should be able to go back to that friendship as long as there was like, no major thing that caused the breakup. Like if he or she was cheating on the other person, I think that would probably not go back easily to being friends. But yeah, I think you totally can.
Okay. All right. So we're going to go ahead and bring our guest on. He actually has a podcast. He also has been in a relationship where now they are friends. So,
Okay.
all right, let's bring our guest on. Hello, AC. How are you doing?
Excellent. How are you doing, sir?
Oh, we are doing awesome. So, AC, Megan, you got too much noise in the background.
I do?
Yes. You got people talking in the background?
No.
Oh. Okay. All right. So AC, so welcome to the show. Tell us a little bit about you and where you're coming from.
Okay, well, first of all, I'm coming from Calgary, Alberta, Canada. We got our first snowfall of the winter today, which
Well, there
I'm not
you go.
thrilled about, but hey, whatever. That's life in Calgary, right?
Mm-hmm.
And just a quick correction, I like to just push back on the host immediately when I come on anywhere. I don't just host a podcast, I host 3.
Wow. You're like me.
And-
Me and Megan host 2, and then of course you've outdone us with 3.
Well, I cut it down to 3, but I mean, there's always room for one more. So I'd say for
Okay.
you and Megan, just like
That's what
push
she
through
said.
it. Why not?
Right. Right.
The goal is to be
Lydia.
everywhere, but never move past like a Z grade celebrity status.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Okay.
There you go. So let's talk real quick. You were in a relationship with somebody who was your friend, right? So
Yeah.
why don't you tell us about your scenario?
Okay. I might be a little bit of a weird one. I'm friends with everybody I've ever been romantically involved with the exception of the most recent 2. And I think that probably has more to do with my poor choices recently than it does with anybody's inability to maintain friendships after a romance. But the relationship in question, I think the one that put me on your radar is the friendship, marriage, and then follow-up friendship I had with my first wife. We were friends for the better part of 10 years before we decided to get married. The marriage was short. It did produce one child. We split up when he was about 3 years old. And there was a season where I looked at her. I thought she was the embodiment of pure evil. I'm sure she felt the same way about me.
Mm-hmm.
But we quickly realized that we had a kid to raise together, and that us disliking each other on any level wasn't going to serve his best interests. So we decided to adopt a fake it till you make it approach.
Okay.
Turns out we didn't really have to fake it for very long. I think like Jeremy had said, we had to go through that season of kind of like recalibration.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
For some people that's a smooth process, others is kind of ugly and jagged, but I don't think it's avoidable however it manifests. And we definitely went through that, but I think we came out the other side of it okay. I mean, we're now sitting the better part of 17 years after the breakup. She's
wow.
one of my best friends, if not my best friend in the whole world. I love her.
That's
She's
awesome.
the godmother to my younger son.
Oh wow.
Oh, okay.
You know, like things can and do change. I mean, even after an ugly breakup, I believe.
How long do you think you need to take a break or a time out?
I think that's entirely dependent on the individuals. It's entirely dependent on the scenario. And I don't know if it was, I can't remember now if it was Megan or Lydia who was mentioning that, you know, it depends on what the nature of the breakup was, like what the circumstances were.
Mm-hmm.
I was a shitty husband. I mean, like, I'll say that right up front. I cheated on her constantly. I was really the worst person in the world for her to be with. And she saw it fit to forgive me.
Mm-hmm.
I would like to say that, you know, I had my reasons for cheating, but that would be just like a bullshit justification. I'm not getting into that.
Yeah.
I was young and stupid and I needed to do some growing up, but I don't know. It just, since the breakup, we've kind of grown up together in different ways. We've learned a lot about forgiveness from each other and through each other. I wouldn't personally have it any other way at this point.
Do you regret the relationship?
No, not for a moment.
Mm-hmm.
How long was, I know you said that like after the breakup, you had to come to the realization that you needed to do better for your child. How long was your recalibration?
Ooh, that's actually not the easiest question to answer because it's not like there was a black and white transition from I freaking hate you to hey, we've got a kid together. It was a little bit more of like a long, slow gray area. I do think that from the actual breakup to the full realization that, oh my God, I actually love this person again, that was a period of about 18 months for me. For her, I think it might have lasted a bit longer because, like I said, I wasn't a great husband.
Now you said that you realized that you loved her. Did you love her in the romantic sense that you had in your marriage, or just as someone you needed in your life?
Oh, you ask good questions, not easy ones.
That's why I'm here.
Well done. I'm not entirely convinced that I loved her in the romantic sense when we were together. I think
Which
that we were
cheat.
friends for a long time, and when people, well, this again, I'm going to limit it to straight-ish people. When straight-ish people of opposite genders are friends for long enough, there's going to come a phase in most cases where things get a little weird and confusing.
It
in our
just
case,
happens.
yeah.
You don't
And
plan to do it, but it just happens? Is that
Yeah, that's kind of the thing. I mean, her biological clock was ticking,
was
as they say, which I
all right,
kind of hate
Marissa
that
Tomei?
that whole saying, but I mean, whatever. I mean, it happens, right? And I was dealing with the man version of that. Not that I was worried that I was going to become genetically invalid overnight, but I was getting tired of answering that question from my parents. You know, when are you going to get married? When are you going to settle down? Are you gay? And thinking, well, wasn't really feeling any internal pressure to move forward, and it's like whether I was gay or not really had jack shit to do with it. I mean, I could have got married either way, right? But I just I found myself in this situation, and I thought, you know, we get along just fine. We reconnected after a short period apart, and you know, she looked good, she smelled good, and we had that platonic connection. We spent a night out in the park talking, and I don't know, something clicked inside of me, and I thought, you know what, this is love, this is it, and that was the beginning for me. I just I couldn't get off that slippery slope.
What would you have done differently?
I think I might have pumped the brakes a little bit and taken the time to make sure that the way I was approaching the relationship was going to be considerate of how it might potentially impact her negatively. I can't say that I have any regrets about it. I mean, things happen the way they happen. If I change anything about the past, well, then my whole present doesn't look the way it does. If I had to express anything resembling a regret, it would be the fact that I hurt her at all, because she really was and is a wonderful person.
It's good that you can see that.
Mm-hmm.
Who initiated the breakup?
I did.
And how did she feel about that?
She wasn't happy.
I feel like maybe you
She
should lie down on a couch for this and I should start taking notes.
no, it was kind of a weird time, right? I mean, I was my father had recently died, and I was going through an ultra religious phase. I mean, I'm an atheist now, but at that time I was trying super duper hard to be a wonderful Christian, which wasn't working out for me, obviously. And she had gone away for a weekend with some of the ladies from church, and she came back feeling like she was on top of the world and ready to approach our relationship with a new enthusiasm. And while she was in the middle of sharing that enthusiasm, I put her on pause and said, I want a divorce. As I'm sure all of you can understand, that there's no way to react positively to somebody just dropping something in your lap like that, especially when you don't see it coming.
Yeah, it's a big bomb.
Yeah, and you know, while she was off filling herself with good things and trying to figure out how to be a better wife, I mean, in all honesty, I'd spent that same weekend with somebody else, and I thought, well, maybe I'll see how that somebody else works out for me for the next season.
And that's what it is. It's all about seasons, you know. It's like people are in your life for a season. No, it's true though. It's true.
It is true.
And when you're in a relationship, you could be with somebody for the rest of your life, or you may only be with them for 2 years, and that your time is done, and you both need to move on. Maybe it's something you guys got to learn from each other that you could take on moving forward in different relationships. Now, does she start blaming herself for all the faults that happen in your relationship by default? Thinking that she could have done something to make you happy, to make you not want to stray?
Oh yeah. I mean, one of the things I think that brought us together and made our friendship stronger after our marriage than it ever was before is the fact that both of us had a lot of things that we wish that we had handled better while we were together, even while we were breaking up. there was a lot of me showing up at her door in the middle of the night in tears, apologizing, just because I'd come to realizations. I would remember conversations we had and I'm like, God, I really handled that poorly. And I went through this like year or so of just needing to own every single thing that I remembered.
Mm-hmm.
And for the first probably 3/4 of that season, there's that word again, she was very, very appreciative and she was receptive to everything I was saying. But it did get to the point where she started feeding back some of the things also that she wished that she had done differently. We came to a very good understanding of each other and where each of us had been at through our relationship and what were the contributing factors to it ending. I think as much as that was hurtful, it was also helpful. It was a great period of growth for both of us. And I gained such a deep appreciation of her that I really wish that I had while it still had mattered when we were still together. But like I said, I had moved on so quickly. And I'd mentioned a little bit earlier that she was the godmother to my second son. I mean, my second son was on the way really damn quickly after the breakup. So there was no going back.
Jeremy, let me ask you. I know that you sit down and talk to couples all the time. If you were with AC and his wife, what kind of questions would you be asking them at this point?
Yeah, number one, I just want to praise you for the level of openness that you're willing to go to here, because this is stuff that can really help people learn. And so, number one, that's just awesome. The second thing is the friendship afterwards. You talk about this real circumspect kind of period of time where the two of you are looking at yourselves, looking at each other, and these kinds of things. So out of that, like what boundaries need to be set up to keep a friendship in a positive space, to ensure that boundaries are not getting violated and that it's healthy? And what would be the boundaries? What are the no-go zones? That would be one of the first things that I would kind of go to. Number two, it's really wonderful the amount of healing that the two of you did through this, and looking at yourselves and so forth. What are the next steps for each of you in rebuilding your new identity and who you are post this breakup? What are your values now that maybe you didn't have before this or during this?
Oh, that's a lot of territory to cover. I mean, starting with I think you started with boundaries. I think the first thing was like learning, for me at least, what healthy boundaries actually are. Most people, they want to jump straight to, where do I assert my boundaries? How do I communicate my boundaries? But they don't take the time to figure out what is a healthy boundary. And
Right.
the way I would describe a healthy boundary if I was working with a client would be to say a healthy boundary is like a fence you build around yourself. If you're building that fence around another person, attempting to control their behavior, their words, their actions, that's a clear-cut sign that is not a healthy boundary. You are overstepping in a big, big way. So once I established that, okay, if a healthy boundary is a fence I build around myself, how do I communicate that? I can't communicate that in terms like, you can't say this around me, you can't do this to me. It's more of a case of like, look, if this is the way you're going to approach me, I can't be around for this. It's really just saying, whatever this show is, I'm going to determine whether or not I'm going to be an audience for it, whether or not I'm going to be a participant. Then it's on the other person to decide whether or not they like that. Then we get into a different conversation that's outside of boundaries again. But I don't know if that answers your questions about the boundaries.
No, it's really good, putting thought into that. And then the second part of it, like, well, what is it that you did that put together the new part of who you are going forward?
Well, I started looking at what are my motivations here. I wasn't hung up in the goal of the whole thing. I'm looking at, okay, what is bothering me in the moment? And how do I want to try to start moving past that? What was bothering in the moment, in the simplest terms, was I was looking at her and thinking, I hate you. But then I was looking at our child and thinking, this human being is, while young right now, as he ages, there's going to be properties and characteristics about him that are going to emerge where he's going to start reminding me of her all the time. Likewise, she's going to be reminding her of me. We need to get comfortable with each other, or we're not going to be able to love our kid properly. And
You know what?
when I start, sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. I'll let you finish up.
So I thought if I want to be a good dad, I'm going to have to figure out how to be a good ex-husband. I'm going to have to look at these characteristics about my ex that are bothering me, and I'm going to have to figure out how to find some beauty in it, because these are things that are making up my child. These, like, child is like the most important person in the world to me at this point. I got to figure out how to like you. I don't want to hate any part of you. I'm looking at this little kid and I don't want to see any ugliness there. And when I started looking at her through the lens of him and who he was, she became a very, very different entity to me. I started seeing something so unbelievably beautiful and something that was so deserving of my deep appreciation, adoration, love, all these things that I wished I had been able to bring to the table while we were together.
Mm-hmm. So let me ask you, coming out of a relationship and knowing that, you know, you have kids together, do you think it's easier to find the friendship with somebody that you share a child with? Or do you think it's easier to find the friendship with somebody you don't have children with?
Having done it both ways, I think honestly, it was harder finding the friendship with my wife that I had the child with. And it was just the reason I found it more difficult is because there was so much more riding on it. Every time I had made friends with an ex in the past, it was a case of, well, if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. Who cares?
Mm-hmm.
If the breakup doesn't take and we end up banging again, who cares? But when there's a child in the mix, God, the stakes are so high. You don't want to misstep and like screw up a kid's life. I don't know. I just I had to stop being so impulsive. I had to really teach myself to be more aware of the fact that consequences exist. And up until that point, my primitive male brain didn't work that way. Consequences were something that I would consider after the fact when I was caught and they were
Mhm.
beating me up. I never considered consequences before before anything.
Did you ever have guilt?
Okay, God, you asked some great questions. Guilt is one of those things I'm not capable of feeling. I've been through a lot of years of therapy, and what I've learned through all those years of therapy is that certain emotions have turned off as some sort of a trauma response. So I guess, in short, to answer your question, no, I don't feel guilt. I wish I could, because I think the situation deserves me feeling bad about it.
Mm-hmm. But you did say that you would go up to her house, to her door, and in the middle of the night and be crying that you sorry for hurting her. So you obviously have emotion.
Mm-hmm.
So you obviously did feel guilt.
Yeah, I'm not saying I've never been able to feel it, but I mean, it's been a long damn time. I think probably empathy would be a little bit more accurate than guilt, because it wasn't a case of like me wanting or needing her to forgive me for my sake.
Mm-hmm.
I could see that I had hurt her. I could see the
Yeah.
damage I had done, and again, looking at this person that I cared so deeply for, this person that represented one half of my child, I don't know. I think maybe I'd be a little bit of a monster if that didn't bother me on some level.
Yeah. And inhuman. You're because you are human, you know. I mean, you're not 100% insensitive,
Right.
you know.
It almost sounds like the 12-step program from like AA, you know, and because making amends, I don't know what step it is. I just know that it's a step. So I don't know. I find that like an interesting correlation. Might be something to look into. But you,
Yeah.
I know you said you had. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, Jeremy.
Well, the question that I was going to ask is the you that there is now. Can you talk about the you that there is now, and maybe the way that you love yourself now, the way that you value yourself now, the place that you have grown into? Can you talk a little bit about that?
That's an ongoing and overwhelming journey. I mean, I grew up in a very abusive environment. There was physical and emotional abuse in the home. There was some sexual abuse at the church. I grew up as a biracial person in a very racist community. That didn't help matters either. I mean, I was socially isolated. There were no safe spaces, and then there was a good healthy dose of religious guilt in the mix as well. So I mean, I grew up kind of hating myself quite a lot. I grew up feeling insecure, unsure, just my normal wasn't exactly what anybody would describe as healthy, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And I carried that with me through a good portion of adulthood. It wasn't until, I mean, I'm 51 now. It wasn't until I hit about my mid 40s when I really started to realize that there was somebody of value inside of this meat suit, you know? And I don't know what set that off. I think to a degree, again, it was like looking at my kids. I mean, I'm seeing so much of myself in them and thinking if I hate me and they are me, then again, I gotta kind of like look at that. If I want to love my kids and be a good dad, I got to figure out how to love their dad. And I've really been working on that a lot.
How
the
is your
last several
relationship
years.
with your children?
Oh God, it is so good. It just my oldest is 22, my youngest is 17, and you know, my relationship with my older kid is just it's such an interesting one, right? It's like when he lost his virginity, he phoned me up uh, the night of, like, beforehand. He said, "Hey Dad, this thing's about to happen. I don't know what to do. Do you have any advice for me?" I'm like, you know, be respectful, be clean.
Don't be
No
silly.
means
Wrap your
no.
willy.
You know, carry protection. You know, if at any point you're not sure about it, there's no obligation to proceed. If she's not sure, you got to give her some space. You know, we had a good talk afterwards. He phoned me and he was able to express to me how special the experience was for him. You know, and I thought that was a huge win in and of itself. It's like, well, what kid is open with their parents that way?
Yeah.
You know, my younger kid, when he's got issues with anything, he comes to me, we have a conversation, we solve the problem together. I feel like we got a really good circle of trust. You know, when at certain times I felt like maybe I haven't brought my best to the table as a father, and I've gone to own up to that with my kids and apologized. They get kind of upset with me when I communicate as though I don't have a high opinion of my parenting, especially the older kid. You know, when I apologized to him, I said, look, you know, it couldn't have been easy watching me raise your younger brother while you were living with your mom. It couldn't have been easy feeling like I abandoned you. Couldn't have been easy just wondering if I loved you all those years. And he said, I never questioned that you loved me. You left when I was young enough where, like, that was my normal. I didn't have these hangups. He says, all I remember of you is anytime I needed you, you showing up. Anytime we spent time together, it was a good time. Whenever mom was on my case, you always had my back. What I learned from that is they see me as a great dad. So, I mean, who the hell am I to question that?
Yeah. Understand. So let's switch gears for a second.
Oh my God, I was literally about to say that. Like, switch gears. That's
Were
funny.
you really?
Yeah,
Okay.
hand to God, I was.
He robbed you of your moment.
I did. But you know what? I'll let you take it because you were going to mention something.
I was going to say, what does everybody think of the notion that, when you're in a relationship, especially a marriage, that person is your best friend for that given amount of time. So once you break up,
You feel like you
shouldn't
lose your best friend.
well, not only did you lose your best friend, but don't you feel like you need that best friend still? Just not romantically?
Boy, that's a really heavy question.
It
because
is.
Man, I am on fire tonight. I'm just saying.
Yeah, you
Yeah,
are.
you are.
But I think that, just kind of getting started with that is that, that's what makes a breakup so profound, because that person really is that important of a relationship with you, and it can be disorienting. And particularly when you're in the recalibration stage, that friendship might even be confusing. And of course, this is a case by case thing. But dealing with the deep internal feelings that you have after a breakup, and the feeling of letdown, and the feeling of denial that you go through, because the stages of grief are the same, whether a person has died or you've lost a relationship or something like that, or even lost a job. There's these depression and denial and coping, bargaining, these different things, right? And so if you're doing that in the confines of, I don't have that most important relationship to me, it's a really confusing time. So I would say in a lot of cases, that recalibration stage and severing that, it's harder in the short term, but much more healthy in the long term, because then you reestablish that relationship, if that's in the stars for you, based upon solid boundaries, mutual respect, and an understanding of what this is and what it is not.
And how you got there, and what is your next step, and where do you go from there? Because there, people are in relationships and they are with their best friend, and then they feel like a lost puppy dog, because like, oh my gosh, this is the one person that I tell everything to, and it's like, and then you feel like I don't have anybody to talk to at this point. And it's like, you're like, fuck, what do I do? I just, you're just like, my life is so turned upside down. It's not like you're dating somebody and it broke up, okay, or whatever. But you build not only a relationship, but you built a friendship over the years with this person. This is the one you go to bed with at night. This is the one you wake up with. This is the one that you cry to. This is the one that maybe you share kids together, and you create that, element. And it's like, what do you do?
You have a grief stage and you recalibrate.
Yes. 5 stages of grief, right?
I really like the way that Jeremy had described that, about, effectively having to figure out how to let go of that friendship before starting to build it fresh. Because when I think on the couple of experiences where breakups had kind of gone poorly for me in the past, I found that without that season of letting go, it just, the friendship, it just seemed like that one good piece of the relationship I wasn't ready to break up with yet. It sort of dragged the unhealthy stage out longer than it needed to go. But the other breakups, where it's a case of, okay, like, we just need to go our separate ways for an indeterminate amount of time. And when we cross paths again, it's going to be a better thing. We're not going to be looking for something that's no longer there. We're going to be looking for something that maybe we haven't discovered yet.
Yeah.
Makes very good, valid sense. You're on mute, Lydia.
I realize that. What was your switching gears topic question?
I just lost that train of thought.
I was gonna say, or did you lose it?
I did.
So then, I will broach the topic of friends with benefits.
After the fact?
No, like you're friends, and
Okay.
then, it happens, and you
Yeah.
decide, oh, like it was good. So why don't we just continue our friendship and just have that when we need it? We have several films that deal with this. So
Mhm.
it'd be curious to see how it is in actual reality compared to
Justin
Hollywood's
Timberlake?
version of it.
I've had very bad experience with the whole friends with benefits after a breakup thing,
Mhm.
because while as the physical relationship is fantastic, because I mean you already know how to push each other's buttons. There's so much room for that lingering emotion to come up, but not in the good way. At least for me, I don't connect physically very easily unless there's some sort of emotional bond. So to try to say, okay, we're going to shift everything to the platonic, but we're still going to be physical, to me, it's a fun idea, but it's not a sustainable one. And I always end up in a confusing headspace that doesn't work out super well for me. So again, I can't speak for anybody else, but working on the assumption that everybody's like me, I would advise people just don't.
So what do you do when you're in a relationship with somebody? Then you break up, you guys are friends again, and then you move into the next relationship. And then that person obviously will be jealous of your friendship with your ex, even though you guys are great friends now.
Well, I think and this is very case specific, if you were truly in love with that person, that love is never going to leave. Like, you may not talk about it, you may not, you know, even realize it, but it's always going to have that place in your heart. So I feel like there would always be just a hint of, either jealousy or, like I wouldn't have, like you said, you're really good friends with your ex. How did you feel when she got into her first relationship? Or did she tell you how she felt when you got into your first relationship?
Well, she was single for quite a long time after we broke up, because she was focusing on our kid. That was her full-time concern.
Mhm.
I had moved on pretty quickly. She wasn't thrilled about it to begin with. And when I say to begin with, I mean like inside of the first couple months of knowing that I was with this other woman who would later become my second wife. But the two of them had a chance encounter in the grocery store when my second wife was about 9 months, or not about 8 months pregnant, and my first wife saw her face initially, and from the way she told the story, she really wanted to hate um, my new wife. But when she looked down and saw the baby bump, she was just overcome with, I don't know, whatever it is that affects certain people. That makes them feel like they just need to go touch the belly. They ended up having this great conversation. She realized that this person that she had hated and that she had so much jealousy towards was actually very connected to her, because their children were siblings. And I think that for them was a good jumping off point. I mean, over the years since then, the two of them have become very close. In fact, this coming Christmas, we're all meeting at my first wife's house. I mean, even the
Oh gosh.
meeting, like both of my ex-wives, we're spending a week together at Christmas time with our kids. And I mean, for years, I mean, that's the way it was. Me and
I see
my
families like that all the time now. It's like now you got, because you have blended families,
yeah.
right? And so I'm getting feedback. Hang on. Jeremy, it's you. Okay. So yeah, you get all these blended families that are there. And they, you got you and your ex, you got her and his ex, you guys are all together, you guys are doing things together, activities, and people look at you like, dude, You guys are weird.
I feel that way about people who are jealous and hateful.
Yeah.
Because this has been my
Yeah.
normal for so long. I mean, why wouldn't you all get along? It's insane to me to want to fight with somebody just because you broke up.
Mm-hmm.
So
And
for
go ahead, Lydia.
no, because yours is probably a follow up to his. Mine was a switching gears.
Oh, okay. You know, people get jealous. Like you said, people get jealous to see relationships have a positive ending to it. A lot of people have, and those are the people that have relationships that ended really bad, and they don't feel like they can ever, they're at the go to the point of return. They're at the point of no return. But some people are able to do just that and be able to be, successful with it and be mature enough and be adult enough about it. And then there's those people that maybe one person wants to do that, but the other one doesn't. And so it's hard sometimes because it's all about maturity, Older people, I think, may have a better, grasp of things because they have more life under their belt. Younger people, not as much. My thinking. I could be wrong.
I agree with that. I think younger people would have a more difficult time dealing with it because, they are always looking for that next best thing.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, I can have an even better friend. Blah, blah, blah.
Blah, blah, blah.
Yada, yada, yada.
Jeremy, your thought?
I actually have some fun facts to share about this whole thing.
Okay.
I love facts.
Fun fact. It's surprisingly common for people to remain friends. And a 2023 YouGov poll found that 37% of Americans would like to stay friends with an ex after an amicable breakup. And this jumps to 65% in a 2021 Psychology Today poll. Men are more likely than women to want to stay friends, according to both YouGov and Psychology Today. And success on this varies, where 44% with exes report not being friends afterwards. And there's a whole bunch of factors that influence the success. Psychology Today highlights that those who were less extroverted, more agreeable, and had secure attachment styles were more likely to remain friends.
I think also, too, like if you have been in a relationship for that long, your friend group kind of becomes whose side do we choose?
Right.
So if you're able to go back into that friendship, it doesn't affect your friend group.
Yeah, that's a great point, Lydia.
Thank you.
She's smart.
She is.
Now, for you three, what would be a reason you would not continue a friendship afterwards?
Malicious actions taken toward me by a person who had disregard for me as a human being.
Mm-hmm.
I agree with that. Or for me, I was in a relationship with somebody who was a compulsive liar. So how do you go back to that? How do you become friends? Because you didn't really know that person. Mm-hmm. You knew what they want you to think they were, not who they really were.
Yeah, my most recent ex was physically, emotionally abusive, undealt with mental health issues, and some secret addiction that revealed itself towards the end.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't get back on that roller coaster.
Of course not.
There's no amount of things she could do to improve herself at this point that would compel me back into a friendship. It just, once I'm done on that level, I'm super duper done.
Yeah. So, topic today is basically we're talking about beyond the breakup, saving the friendship. Can people go back to the point of no return, or are they at the point of no return, or can they go back and pick up that friendship? Was there value in that relationship where they could walk away and know that, you know what, the relationship didn't work, but we have such a damn good friendship? Can that overpower the breakup? I'm going to ask each one of you guys what you guys feel. Lydia.
I think the more respect you have for each other would make you want to continue that friendship. That's just, I don't know, my
Jeremy?
thoughts.
Yeah, respect is a big thing. But sometimes after a relationship, you really do need to take some steps to heal yourself, reinvent yourself, figure out what you're about. Sometimes these relationships are profoundly impactful, and they take years in the building and the collapsing of it, and sometimes it's really in certain situations reinventing yourself and going elsewhere is a really good option.
AC.
I do a lot of work with people who are struggling with family estrangement. Over the years, I've become something of an expert on platonic relationships. I stay away from romance. I find like the fiery, flowery bits about romance that make it exciting aren't the parts that are difficult to navigate. The difficult parts to navigate of any relationship are the platonic elements. All of that being said, I think that the first thing any of us needs to do is to work on ourselves. If we work on ourselves, we figure out what do we need, what do we bring to the table, what are our hurts, what are our triggers, how do we navigate us. If we figure all that out, other people on a platonic level become actually fairly easy to work with. I don't think this is something that's dependent on having broken up, having been blood related, having been anything. Always the work has to start here with me.
Right.
I find it interesting that you touched on the topic of like family estrangement. And it almost makes me think maybe one of them wants to continue on in the friendship because they had built a strong relationship with the other's family and they don't want to lose that either. Because now not only have they lost their partner, they have lost, someone who treated them like they were part of the family. And it's helping heal that inner child of estrangement.
Mm-hmm.
See, when you spend years in therapy, you start to be able to give it to people.
True story.
Somebody get her a license.
I know. Well, she did say earlier, lay on the couch. I'm going to take notes.
I will also say I feel like tonight's episode I'm more involved in than I have been previously. Yeah. I don't know, maybe because I researched it a little bit. And
well, there you go.
Yeah, but Crystal does the numbers.
She does the numbers. Yeah.
And right now, I'm the only girl.
You are, and I'm not used to this. Normally, I'm the only guy.
So
Megan felt.
I feel like when there's other girls, it's like, they might have the similar thoughts. So if they start on it, I'm like, why am I?
Yeah. AC, I want to thank you so much for taking some time and joining us and telling us your story and opening up. It takes a lot. It says a lot about somebody that can just totally be open about who they are and what they did and take ownership of it, So, I definitely commend you on that. So I do appreciate you doing that for us.
Hey, I've been open for so many years. I don't know how else to be at this point. I mean, I like to share openly about whatever my struggle, whatever my story is, because in doing so, I feel like I give permission to other people to do the same.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I can give a voice to somebody who is going through something similar and hasn't been courageous enough to articulate it. It just, I don't know. Being open is never a waste of time, I believe.
I am just before we end. Another thought. Has anybody, after talking about this for an hour and hearing different perspectives, does that change your answer at the beginning?
What was the question at the beginning?
Do you believe you can be friends after a breakup. Obviously, you are still agreeable. So this is more towards Roger and Jeremy.
I feel like it's all about the maturity of the couples, that couple and what you guys been through and why you broke up. Sometimes it does matter if you have kids or not, or when you do have kids, I feel like you kind of do what you can to make it, get along, because you don't want your kids thinking that the parents hate each other. But I think more importantly, it's about, when you exit the relationship, is the maturity there where are you both mature enough where you can be able to maintain a good friendship? An example is, and we had her on my show, my Kara, who was my ex, and we did the episode of, can you be friends with your ex? She has ghosted me 100%. I think she got into a new relationship. I think she just ghosted everybody in her past and closed them all out because she got a new Instagram account. She blocked everybody numbers, and I think she got a different phone number. And I think she did that for him, I'm thinking. And she didn't tell me this. She didn't tell me this. I kind of had to do a little of my own investigating and realize that this guy that she broke up with, they're like close again. And I kind of figured out they're together again. So instead of giving me the respect to say, hey, Roger, I'm in another relationship, I don't think that we should talk anymore in respect to the relationship. It was a complete 100% ghost. I'm like, what? That, I don't know. I lose respect for somebody like that.
And you, Jeremy?
I had a hard breakup as a young man, and it was one where I was not okay for a really long time. And I could not have been friends with her because I was having a difficult time resetting my own life. And only later in life did we become friends. And, it goes along with what you're talking about. The maturity, the better development of your own identity, knowing who you are better, because when you're younger, you really lean into each other and kind of lose yourself sometimes. So when you have a better sense for who you are, I think it's more of something that you can do. But in my own life, when I was younger, I was not capable of it. Now that I'm older, I am.
Yeah. It's all about taking your experience and learning and growing with it when you move to the next one. And you'll take that experience and you'll learn and grow when you move to the next one. And that's why I said that, when you're older, you've had a lot of experiences on your belt, under your belt, that you could be able to try to maintain that friendship. When you're when you're falling out of your first relationship in life, you have hatred and everything. And sometimes it's not worth hating somebody over. You just have to accept the fact maybe we aren't compatible as a couple, and that's okay. And you need to say that's okay. But hey, you're a great person, and maybe we can go out and grab some lunch sometime, or a cup of coffee,
for a meet and greet.
Or a meet and greet. Yes. Well, not a meet and greet because you already met each other.
I know.
You've already greeted with each other.
I try to throw that in every episode.
I know you do.
It's a little Easter egg for people that have been listening from the beginning.
Yeah. Well, maybe we'll do an episode on meet and greets. Do they work? Do they not work? All right, guys. We'll be back next week. New exciting topic. What is it going to be? You'll find out. AC, thank you again. Appreciate you telling your story. Megan fell off. Her computer overheated. And thank you, Jeremy, for joining us. And Lydia. Appreciate it. As always.
Thanks for having me.
Yes, absolutely.
It was great to meet you. I will always mess this up.
Of course. You're good. All right, guys. We will see you next week. You guys have a great, amazing week.
You as well.